Good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney, and today we'll be looking at the topic of writing difficulties. Writing difficulties are not uncommon within a classroom, with language based difficulties affecting up to 20% of the population. And like all learning difficulties, they can have a great impact on a child's education and mental well being. When it comes to writing, it is easy to overlook the complexity of the process, as we often forget the intricate skills that go into a simple task. Even during children's earliest encounters with writing, they are required to use difficult physical and cognitive processes to form sophisticated letters. Dysgraphia is a neurological disorder that can cause major writing difficulties. It is not known what causes dysgraphia, though early intervention can be severely reduced the impacts that it may have. There are three different types of dysgraphia, these being dyslexic, motor, and spatial. Dyslexic dysgraphia makes on the spot written work extremely hard to read, though copied work is fairly legible. It also results in children having poor spelling. Motor dysgraphia is due to a lack of fine motor skills, poor dexterity, and/or muscle tone. In this case, written work is usually illegible, whether independently constructed or copied. This strand of dysgraphia can also lead to poor letter formation. Spatial dysgraphia is due to a lack of understanding of space and is characterized by legible written work but normal levels of spelling. One of the main issues surrounding writing difficulties is the fact that if they aren't identified as early as possible, it can affect the person well into the future because the ability to write is extremely important. In the same way, this is one of the main arguments and debates surrounding the issue too, as some argue that in the 21st century, the ability to write is becoming an obsolete skill. This is a tough reality for many people, especially those who grew up with no access to computers at all, to face. However, in modern society, many have access to some form of device 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This, though, does not necessarily mean the skill of writing is obsolete. Not only is writing itself important, but the skills that come with it, such as being able to get one's idea out in a valid way, actually conveying the intended meaning, and being able to correctly form sentences, are skills that will always be relevant and necessary, even with computers. A 2010 study by Sarah Rosenblum on the relationship between handwriting and organizational skills in children with and without dysgraphia found that, as to be expected, children without dysgraphia were able to organize their ideas much more clearly than those suffering from it. This in turn made it easier for the children without dysgraphia to explain their results and convey their message more clearly. This thus links back to the importance of early intervention of those students without dysgraphia, as the sooner assistance is given to them to help organize their ideas, etc., the better off their education will go in the long run. The Education General Provisions Act 2006 outlays its main objectives as making a high quality education available to all young people that will help maximize their potential and enable them to become an effective and informed member of the community. One of the key ways they aim to do this is by ensuring that educational programs are suited to the individual needs of the learner. This is why it is so important that we focus on writing difficulties and catering for those students as early as possible. There is also a Disability Discrimination Act 1992 that outlines that people with disabilities must not be treated in a way less fair than that of someone without a disability. ACARA tries to cater for the needs of students with learning difficulties as they state that they are committed to the development of a high quality curriculum for all Australian students that promotes excellence and equity in education, and that all students are entitled to rigorous, relevant, and engaging learning programs drawn from a challenging curriculum that addresses their individual learning needs. They aim to meet this commitment by providing education and training to educators so that they are able to best support the rights of students with learning disabilities to access the curriculum on the same basis as students without a learning disability. There are many characteristics to look for when trying to identify students with writing difficulties. Try and look for them, as I say, in these pictures on the board. These can include, but are not limited to, a mixture of upper and lowercase letters, irregular letter sizes and shapes, unfinished letters, difficulty using writing as a communication tool, odd writing grip, especially holding the writing instrument very close to the paper or holding thumb over two fingers and writing from the wrist, many spelling mistakes, pain when writing, decreased or increased speed of writing and copying, talks to self while writing, general illegibility, inconsistent position of letters on the page with respect to lines and margins, inconsistent spaces between words and letters, strange wrist, body, or paper position, large gap between written ideas and understanding demonstrated through speech, poor sentence structure of written text compared to oral ability, difficulty organizing thoughts on paper, avoidance of drawing, coloring, and writing tasks, anxiety when presented with writing tasks, pressing down hard with the pencil, writing from the shoulder, not the wrist or hand, difficulty thinking of what to write, and difficulty planning assignments and ordering information into a logical order. So on here you can see the fact that there are no spaces, there's inconsistent use of capitals and lowercase, the writing doesn't follow, any set pattern there. So you can see a lot of those are demonstrated within these examples here. Dysgraphia can be diagnosed by both educational psychologists or occupational therapists depending on whether or not the person has language-based dysgraphia or mechanical-based dysgraphia. Generally, the tests that are undertaken in order to diagnose dysgraphia include an IQ test, academic assessment for reading, math, writing, and language, measurement of fine motor skills, writing samples looking at spelling, grammar, and punctuation, as well as quality of ideas, and tests that involve copying designs. A finger tapping speed test is also commonly used in order to identify fine motor skill problems. When it is confirmed that a child does have a writing difficulty, there are many different strategies that can be explored in order to allow these children to have every success in the classroom. Generally, there are 3 different categories that these strategies fall into: accommodation, modification, or remediation. Accommodation strategies involve having alternate modes of delivery. For writing difficulties, this may include things such as having the students use a keyboard to type their work or deliver presentations verbally as opposed to in a written mode of presentation. Modification strategies involve changing the expectations or task to minimize or avoid the area of weakness. For writing difficulties, this may include things such as allowing the students to present their assessment in different modes, similar to accommodation. Remediation strategies provide explicit instruction of the skill that is struggled with. For writing difficulties, this may include things such as explicit instruction regarding handwriting and writing skills, as well as pencil grip. Extensive therapy from an occupational therapist is another remedial option. This can provide additional assistance with correcting pencil grip, strengthening muscle tone, improving dexterity, and improving hand-eye coordination. Learning to cater for students with writing difficulties can also include things such as learning as much as you can about the issue, observing and taking notes of the child's behaviour when writing, focusing on effort and not always outcome, finding other useful apps, and increased communication with parents, especially encouraging writing at home. I hope that this presentation has provided you with some insight into what writing difficulties are and how they can be catered for within each and every classroom. I thank you for your time today, and if there are any questions, please feel free to see me afterwards. Thanks again.